Hello and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. It is October 24th, 2024. This is episode 302. Stand-up comedian, actor, improviser, and dreamer, Paul Green, sharing my journey as I pursue my comedy dreams and hope that you are all out there pursuing your dreams as well. So, tonight was the Midlife Crisis comedy show, which is my two-person show with my good buddy Josh Novi. We had over at JPs Comedy Club. And, I try to be fairly positive on this podcast, but I also try to be realistic. And it wasn't our best show. It was hard to kind of pinpoint because there's just so many factors, but it definitely felt a little off tonight and just wasn't quite clicking as well as it has in the past. I think overall, the audience enjoyed it. I had a chance to say hello to some of the audience members as they were leaving. I always try to shake the audience's hand as they leave. But yeah, it just something felt a little off. And there could be a million reasons for that. Josh and I, we actually haven't performed together in almost a month. We've been traveling and touring and doing other things. And so, that could have something to do with it. I also, just the way my day went, I hadn't eaten all day. So I was pretty hangry and I was up super late creating ads for the show, trying to get some last day ticket sales. So, it's just something that I have to remind myself that not every single show is going to be stellar. And I think one of the challenges of pursuing really anything is just an acknowledgement that no matter how hard we try, no matter how much work or effort we put into whatever it is that we're doing, some days it's just not going to click. Some days it's not going to go as well as you had hoped. And I think that historically I would let experiences like this maybe get me really kind of down and discouraged for a while. It's like, I only need to be having awesome shows all the time, and if any show isn't super stellar, then there's something wrong with me or whatever. And, I think it's just valuable to recognize that, especially when it comes to entertainment and something as subjective as comedy, that, we don't have a whole heck of a lot of control of who shows up at any given show. You never know what the demographic of the audience is going to be to a certain degree. And sometimes as a comedian, you're just not feeling it. You're, not as connected. You're feeling off. There could just be so many reasons. And I think the important thing is to, if there's something that can be learned, if there is any sort of way to review or, look at things and go, okay, is there something that can be learned from this so that we can learn and grow and maybe do better the next time? Well, sure, that's one thing. But beyond that, I think the trick is to not take it personally, not allow a bad show or a setback to completely knock you off your game, cause you to get discouraged, cause you to go into like some sort of shame spiral, and just go, hey, the path to greatness is never linear. It's always ups and downs and jagged and whatnot. And, and it's probably also the thing to where it's easy to be like hypercritical. But overall, even on an off night, the show was still really fun. And we had a lot of great moments. And it's like, sure, maybe it wasn't, clicking as well as it used to, and or not used to, or how it has before, but we still got a lot of laughs. We still had a great time. And, on to the next show, on to the next experience, and try to learn and grow from it, and move forward. And that's that's not something I've always been really good at in my life. I definitely was far more prone to discouragement, if I had a bad set or I had a bad show. And I feel like I've had to evolve past that and just recognize that, all right, again, tonight, not the best show I've ever done, definitely not the worst, and move forward and, just on to the next show. How can I do better? How can I improve? And how can I still pursue the dream and stay on the path without getting knocked off just because one little show wasn't, the greatest show that's ever been done by me and Josh. So that's the recap of tonight. And then on Saturday, I am going to be hopping on a plane and flying up to Salt Lake City, where I will be playing Lord Voldemort at the nation's largest Harry Potter party. And that's just so much fun. And it's just so random how that all came to be. And I mean, the fact that I even get to do that is just a reminder of, if you're out there and you're pursuing your dream and you're really following your heart and your passion, you're going to connect with people. You're going to have these weird synchronicities. Things are going to happen that will allow you to have experiences that you never even knew you wanted, or that you even could think to ask to experience. So that will be really fun. So I'm going to keep today's episode a little bit on the short side, but I do want to talk about one thing. So those of you who follow the podcast know that I have been commentating on a self-help book that I'm listening to at any given time. Well, I just finished the last self-help book, and I asked for some recommendations. Thank you to everybody who left their thoughts and ideas in the comments. Somebody recommended The Bible by Buddy Jim as a self-help book. Probably not going to try to break down and commentate on the Bible. Unless you want me to, where would I even start? Start at Genesis, Old Testament, or maybe only New Testament? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was void without form, and God said, let there be light, and then there was light, and God saw that it was good. So I don't know. I really do resonate with a lot of self-help, books and philosophies and thought leaders. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't decided. Oh, but how about this? So that's funny. When I just said, God said, let there be light, and then there was light. To honor the suggestion of commentating on the Bible, how about I pontificate a little bit on that statement? Let there be light, and then there was light. Because what I really find fascinating about that whole scripture is that it's the idea that by merely speaking, you can speak reality into creation. Or you can, I should should rearrange that. You can create reality by speaking to a degree. Now, I don't even want to get into all of the ways that that's probably not true, but to me, it does remind me of the power of deliberate language. And, oh man, what was this guy's name? His name is Chalmers Brothers, has a TED Talk that I've listened to a bunch. I think it's a really effective TED Talk. And he reiterates this idea that words indeed do have the power to create. Now, it's not the only power or influence that creates, and merely speaking something doesn't necessarily mean that something is going to be created or not, but there is a power in speaking. I think about this from time to time as well when I go, like, if I'm just having a conversation with a buddy, and sometimes I'll think to myself, like, wow, I could say something right now that could completely destroy this relationship. Like, I have the power to speak, like, vitriol words to somebody who, like, knows me really well, or like a good friend, and those words alone could be sufficient to completely dismantle an entire friendship. Matter of fact, I mean, I hate bringing this up because it's a kind of a bitter, negative experience, but that happened to me just earlier this year when I had a long-term relationship with a club and the owners, and they chose to speak to me in a manner that to me was so offensive and unnecessary that I severed my relationship with them. And when I've thought about that, I'm going like, wow, all they did was speak to me in a certain manner. And those words were powerful enough to completely dismantle a long-term relationship. So, and just think about that in your own life. Like, think of somebody who you know and love. Like, you could go up to them and be like, I've decided that you're the worst human being, and I think you're a piece of blah, 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 blah. Like, you could just say words that would just completely, again, destroy a relationship, right? So if words have that much power to destroy, then do they not also have a I'm thinking of the word correlated, but that's not the right word. If they can destroy, well, then they can also have the power to create, right? So the words that we choose to speak can also be creative, or can create and can generate, just by, I don't know. I mean, doesn't every relationship start with a conversation? Doesn't every business deal start with a conversation? Isn't every government start with a conversation? I mean, wow. I mean, everything is the conversations we have. So let there be light. Words are spoken, and then light happened. And so I am constantly reminded of how important it is to really safeguard or be very selective in not only the words I say out loud, but probably even more importantly, the words that I speak internally to myself. Because I think those conversations are probably by far the most significant. Because my instinct tells me that every conversation that we have externally or out loud is probably preceded by a conversation that we've had internally. And, if I'm internally thinking, oh man, this person, oh my gosh, they're a piece of garbage, I can't stand them or whatever. Well, if that's what the conversation I'm having internally, then probably when I meet that person in real life, I'm probably going to say out loud sort of the summation, or at least the words that will be consistent with the emotions and thoughts and feelings I had about that person based off of the language I was speaking about them internally. And I keep on defaulting to the negative application of this, but the same thing will speak positively if I have positive words and this person's great and I love them and whatever it is. Then when I actually see them, then the words I'm going to say out loud are also going to have some sort of predecessor to them. So it is, to me, so very important to be very deliberate with language, with words, both internally and externally. And, this is probably also something that I could use a tremendous amount of work on. And I have really tried to, as much as possible, influence and retrain my inner voice to speak to me with a significant amount of kindness and grace and encouragement, because that wasn't always the case. I used to be very critical and, discouraging and sort of self-sabotaging and self-deprecating internally. And then guess what? That's how I would speak about myself externally. I still have a tendency to do that. I still have a tendency to be somewhat self-deprecating, maybe as a way of trying not to come across as egotistical or, arrogant or whatever it is. So, but I've done a lot of work on that. And, I have really found it beneficial to, first of all, train myself how to speak to myself and how to speak to myself with kind, respectful tones and with gratitude and with encouragement and support. And it does make a very significant difference. I'm reminded of this anecdote. I cannot recall who said it. It was some TED Talk, and forgive me, whoever said this, that I'm not able to recall and give you credit for telling this story. But anyway, he tells this story about like a woman who's, maybe in her like late 30s and, she had been through a horrible divorce and she hadn't been on the dating scene in a while. And then she, meets a guy online and they're supposed to meet up for drinks and she's at the bar and the guy stands her up. He doesn't show up. And then, then he's like, yeah, so she called her friend and then her friend started saying, hey, well, that guy probably didn't show up because he saw your pictures and, he knows that you're a little overweight and probably saw that you're divorced and you have a lot of baggage. And so, you're just probably not the type of person who any guy would find interesting, something along those lines. And then the speaker goes, well, the problem was that actually wasn't her friend who said that. That is what she said to herself, right? It was the internal dialogue that was that harsh and that demeaning and that cruel in the midst of, a very discouraging experience, to get stood up. And so It's interesting. Obviously, when I hear that story, I go like, oh, that doesn't sound like a good friend. What friend would speak like that to somebody else? And then when you find out, oh, that was the internal dialogue, well, then you go, well, wait a minute. If I wouldn't speak to a friend that way, then why would I speak to myself that way? Shouldn't I be my own best friend? Shouldn't I be my own biggest supporter? And I think it's kind of interesting that for the most part, we're probably not, at least in my experience. I know in my experience, I've probably been a lot more self-critical of myself than I have been supportive of myself. And again, that's something that I have really worked hard to adjust and transform. Have to do the inner work. So anyway, to my good buddy Jim recommending that I commentate on the Bible, there you go. There's a little commentary on the Bible, all based off of the opening lines, "Let there be light," and the power of speaking words, and the power that words have to create, and to create light, and to create a world. And I guess it begs the question of what world are we creating? And all we have to do is look at the language. What are we saying? What are we speaking? And what are we speaking to ourselves? Because that will largely determine the type of experience and world we want to create and that we are creating. All right, everybody. So that is all for today. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast, October 24th, 2024, episode 302. I hope you're all doing well. Your dreams are coming true. And I love you all so much. I will talk to you tomorrow.